Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And after the major news yesterday that there will not be a new Call of Duty title in 2023, it's also been revealed that some pro players wanted to blacklist OpTic from practice after the Shotzzy F8 stabilizer shenanigans. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel on the verge of 75,000 subs. Just love to see it. Firstly, we've got to dive all the way into this new Call of Duty stuff, right? Because a major piece of news comes out yesterday initially from Bloomberg. Everyone was reporting on this, that Activision will not release a new Call of Duty game next year. This year's game, Modern Warfare 2022, whatever, going to be a copy and paste game, we imagine, of 2019's Modern Warfare Infinity Ward game, is going to come out, well, this year still. That's all going ahead as planned. But the year after that, which was meant to be a tryout game, is seemingly going to get delayed. This is obviously a really big deal. The first time this has happened, of course, in a very long time, I imagine, if not ever. And in fairness, this is something that may have been predictable, really, given the fact that Treyarch right now are obviously in a very tough spot. They had to bring forward Black Ops Cold War by a year because Sledgehammer's game wasn't ready, and now they're working on the ranked play stuff, right? They're kind of being stretched all over the shop, and to have to come up with another game next year as well, that would have been a bit of a stretch, right? So I guess they're very happy, right? And we'll actually have a look at that in a second. Their year's getting pushed back a bit, but that does mean, rather likely, that we might well get, it's definitely more than 50% likely, that we're going to have 2 seasons of Modern Warfare 2022 in the CDL. Generally not the greatest year to have 2 years of a game, given the fact that, Modern Warfare 2019 wasn't the greatest for competitive play, one might well argue. Now still, this is very interesting, because we've heard a lot of talk about this and the potential and the implications of, okay, what would happen if we have a game for multiple years? Because there has been some issues, really, with having a game for just 1 year. Like, there's obviously some pros and cons in general, because, yes, a new game comes out every year, the off-season gets very exciting, like a bit of a shake-up in which players and which teams are particularly good, but also, there's so many things that happen with the game at launch that's just so problematic, right? The game's never particularly well-tuned for competitive play, the league has to start somewhat later as a result, you could argue, because the game isn't in the greatest spot. I don't really think that should be a massive deal anyway, but it certainly won't be an excuse if there is a second year of Modern Warfare 2022. Discuss that in a little bit more detail in a second, but also things like ranked play, the integrations, the team skins, the weapon camos, all this type of stuff that takes so long to add in every year that we only get around now, if not later, and other features that are already being fixed, they're fine for the second year of a title. So we have been saying for a while, at some point Activision surely has to go away from yearly releases. This might not be the best year to do it, given that we don't get what we imagine is not going to be the greatest competitive game we've ever seen, but still, who knows? It's going to be an interesting tester. Obviously some pros and cons, as always. I'm trying to look on some of the more positive notes, as I say right here, that it's very possible that, like, look, there's no excuses. As Daniel Sy has been saying from the CDL front, they want to try and start the league a bit earlier. Like, there's absolutely no excuses if they can't accomplish that this year. There's no excuses for them not to accomplish it the next year when it's in the second year of the title. You've got to start the season November, December at that point. So that is one way to look at it. The other possibility, which has been discussed, is that it's kind of unlikely that next year they won't release any new Call of Duty stuff. Yes, there might not be a new game, but what if they were to remaster an old game, right? That's not out of the realms of possibility. And also, given the fact that the CDL in general is kind of a marketing tool, that's the way Activision see it, I imagine. Like, okay, we're going to play the new game, and therefore we're going to promote the new game. But look, if they've got all their marketing activity they really want done for Modern Warfare 2022, and they happen to release a, Black Ops 2 Remastered, Black Ops 2 Remastered, being very optimistic here about the games they might potentially remaster, but if they did, that actually might make sense as kind of a marketing perspective to say, okay, let's actually have the CDL players play that new game, which isn't really a new game, but it's kind of a new game, and well, that'll actually be good for the sales of that game, in theory. That also would be a lot better for us. We don't have to deal with Modern Warfare 2022 for a couple of years, and we get to play Black Ops 2, or even, Black Ops 2 Remastered, or something like that, or another game they want to remaster. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe Modern Warfare 2, the original one remaster, will come out, and then there's a bit of a question mark as to what we should play. Of course, that's an optimistic perspective of what we might be looking at here. More than likely, we'll just get to play Modern Warfare 2022 for a couple of years. Might be a tough time. This also is a possibility. There was some talk about that Activision is looking to release another free-play Call of Duty title next year, free-to-play, which sounds separate from Warzone, which, of course, like, this is by no means guaranteed, but it could well be a Call of Duty mobile port to PC and consoles, like a kind of a, all-encompassing Call of Duty title on PC instead of just being on mobile right now. Lots of people say the COD Mobile is probably the best version of Call of Duty that is out right now, but it's, of course, on mobile. Like, it seems like only a matter of time until they might want to port that to an actual PC version with kind of a best-of Call of Duty mentality. If that's the case, then we might be in business. By no means guaranteed that's what they're talking about here. It could be like some sort of open world weird stuff. Don't really know what they're thinking. But still, there's a glass half full, glass half empty type of phenomenon going on here in kind of the opinions that people are having. Definitely intrigued to hear your perspective, of course, in the comment section below. This also major news yesterday from Rokkr, as Chrome points out. There was a patch update that comes through nerfing the MP40. I don't know to what degree yet this has had any impact on what the pros are using. It might not have any impact at all. The MP40 might still be the best SMG by a country mile. well. But still, there has been a pretty significant decrease in damage range for the MP40, which I think is a pretty good deal also from the viewing perspective, because there will often be slightly less shots to kill in certain situations. Now, well, Exclusive seemingly does the testing right here. So the 3-shot kill range has gone down from 15 meters down to 12.7. That's a pretty significant reduction. It's not crazy, but it's significant nonetheless. And 28 down to 24 meters for the 4-shot kill range. So yeah, relatively big deal on the whole. Definitely a substantial change. Now, look, is this going to make any difference to the state of the meta right now? I'd say it's relatively unlikely. The MP40 is still more than likely going to be the dominant weapon in the SMG category. But sometimes things like this change, and some pros, well, most pros just keep using the MP40. But over time, because of this change, people realize that one of the other SMGs has actually become slightly more viable, especially if they continue to make balance updates like this, like Sledgehammer kind of, well, respond to the feedback, see what the percentage is still being if people are using the MP40 in public matches, this type of stuff, and then maybe make some additional adjustments down the line. Then we could get some sort of meta change, because I think right now people are saying, yeah, the MP40, probably too strong and somewhat overused. Would be nice to have something additional coming through into the meta. Let's dive into this Shotzzy situation once again. This was a few days ago at this past weekend. There was, of course, the big drama that went on. Shotzzy accidentally used the F8 stabilizer on his MP40, and that's not allowed in the rule set, or at least, well, it is allowed in the rule set, but the pros come up with their gentlemen's agreements, things they think should be banned in addition to the rule set, but aren't officially integrated, and yeah, he broke that kind of by accident. Everyone was talking about it, loads of drama hitting the timeline. Now, if you guys have been around quite a long time, you guys might remember back in the Ghost days, there was the OpTic Blacklist that went down kind of famously when OpTic were getting all the YouTube viewership and all of this stuff, and kind of a lot of the other pro teams didn't like that they were getting that, and therefore they kind of instigated a blacklist where they refused to scrim the OpTic team with the intention that I guess they couldn't stream that, but also that OpTic wouldn't get the good practice against good teams, therefore they wouldn't be quite so good, and therefore they wouldn't be able to, win events, and also, have the biggest streams and the personalities and all this type of stuff that was going on at the time. Very controversial. It relatively quickly came to an end. But still, I was wondering what would happen as a result of this, because there was some talk, I think, on the flank after the fact that they were pretty confident that the GA chat, the pros that usually talk in, was going absolutely wild behind the scenes as this was going on. And supposedly, according to Enable, and a Parasite comment on it as well, there was some discussion about trying to blacklist the OpTic guys once again by some of these pro teams, frustrated that Shotzzy had used this, albeit accidentally, and said, look, it's time to take down the OpTic guys.
I know Shotzzy a decent amount, and he just, respectfully, he's like an airhead. You know what I mean? Like, he's just whatever. He's not thinking about that.
He's a bonehead, man.
Yeah, he's not thinking about that, and he's not going to do something to quote unquote cheat to get an advantage. But is it that big of a, was that whole thing that big of a deal? Because I don't even know what the F8 stabilizer does.
No,
rapid fire, I think.
Because
right?
I heard before you go, Chris.
No, that's recoil booster.
I heard that.
Oh, that's the recoil booster.
Teams were trying to blacklist them, by the way.
Okay,
because of that. Because of the cheating thing. And I don't know if there's other things behind the scenes, or it was just this. But I was kind of mind blown about the whole situation.
Okay, yeah, the F8 stabilizer, it's just a recoil enhancing attachment. So
does it take or does it take the bloom off?
I
saw someone on Twitter say that.
I think it has some accuracy stat, which I think is bloom, so it does. And it's got it's like long barrel, so it's like, but it's not game changing to the point where it won them the series in a dominant fashion.
Yeah, no, they were just outplayed out of them.
In terms of blacklisting, I think that's very uncalled for. But at the same time, I think if anything there is to bring up, it's more of backlash. It's if a different player did that to OpTic per se, they would get actually and people would make it a huge deal when
there'd be death threats on Twitter.
People would people could use an attachment that made your gun worse, and it was if the attachment was not blacklisted, GA'd, and they won the series because of it, even if it made your gun worse, they would have been like, oh, you did this and this and this, if it wasn't Shotzzy or anyone from OpTic, which I think is fair, man. I think there's a lot of bias when it comes down to stuff like this. I would always talk about this back in the day when it came to me. It's if I made a joke, it would be toxic. If somebody else made the same joke, it wouldn't be the same. I mean, the same thing applies with, if somebody made a mistake in the CDL with stuff like that, things that aren't officially, banned and stuff like that, some people would make it a big deal, some people wouldn't. And I think that's a very fair thing. Oh yeah, Sib would be torched. If it was any rookie,
So this is kind of incredible, to be honest, that this was even raised as a possibility here in 2022. Like, there's no way anything like this would stick for a long period of time. And also, it's very clear this was an accident, right? Look, if Shotzzy did this intentionally, I can, of course, some of the pros might have a fair point, right, in saying, look, let's not scrim these guys until they decide to actually play by the rules that we've decided to play by. But, of course, like, this was unintentional. Like, Shotzzy didn't mean to use this, as Enable well points out. Like, Shotzzy, he focuses on the game, right? He's not going to notice this thing on his screen that's on his weapon at the particular time. But, I mean, yeah, quite remarkable, really. If this actually happened, I wonder what would happen as a result. Because the problem is, like, if you're a pro kind of, talking about this type of stuff and actually suggesting it become a reality, like, there's no way you can get away with it for all that long. Because as soon as the OpTic guys start talking about it, then, I mean, immediately the backlash is going to be immense against some of these pro players. Maybe some of them get exposed at the individuals, and then all the talk of the town is on them. And it's very unlikely that every single team in the league outside of OpTic, right, would actually agree to this. Maybe a couple of teams decide, okay, we don't want to scrim the OpTic guys, like, it's basically punishment for breaking the gentleman's agreements. But as I say, still unintentional, right? And the apology has come through and all this type of stuff. And it is quite interesting because a lot of people were kind of comparing the Shotzzy situation, like the Cellium situation, right, abusing these glitches and the snaking, this type of stuff. Like, that doesn't seem to get those guys blacklisted from scrims, because I guess people want the good practice against FaZe, right? To try and know, because FaZe is the number one team, like, everyone wants to practice against FaZe to try and glean something from their gameplay, whereas that maybe not always the case with other squads. This is a tweet actually back from 2014. I didn't actually mention what was on the screen here, but this is, back from the 2014 days when that original OpTic Blacklist was going through. There was also that, like, Hextra, well, did a video at the time as well, kind of talking about the OpTic Blacklist and the frustrations that I'm sure he was having at the time. But yeah, nowadays a very different story. Clearly, this didn't go through and actually become a reality, but there was no way this is going to become a long-term thing anyway. But it just shows that these pros, like, I mean, yeah, when the opportunity is there, they'll certainly talk about this type of stuff behind the scenes. I wouldn't be surprised to see this is talked about by maybe a couple of pro players, but, the majority probably realize this isn't going to happen in reality, and probably also thought, like, what Shotzzy did is not worthy and not deserving of something like this anyway. But yeah, definitely intrigued to your perspective down below. The pros truly never do cease to amaze. This also was kind of funny from Scump. It's true, Zoomer Methods, because Methods was kind of one of the guys back in the 2014 days that was, helping to instigate this original OpTic Blacklist that came into effect. So definitely, worthy of discussion at the very least. And just to finish out with this best map tier list that Scump does last night, just wanted to run through some of the tiers I thought were pretty cool. You can't quite see it at the bottom because it's paused. If I play it, actually, this thing will disappear at the bottom, and you guys can see the maps. So we've got Good Stuff Cannon, Miami, he puts actually in F tier, which is pretty funny. Piccadilly, Stonehaven, and USS Texas, definitely deserving of the USS Texas down there. Bacage gets D tier. Got a bit of a zoom in right here, which is nice. So, okay, we've got Overgrown, Quarry, this is Octane from Ghost, we've got Gunrunner from Modern Warfare, of course, I think that's a state from Modern Warfare 2 in the C tier. Then actually Moscow up in the B tier, fair play. This is Precinct from Infinite Warfare. I'm guessing this is Havana from Black Ops 1, Freight from Ghost, Comeback from Advanced Warfare, and Biolabs are certainly worthy of a B tier, maybe even better, to be honest. Then A tier, we've got Stronghold, definitely I'd put it in there, no questions at all. Strike as well from the original Modern Warfare. This is one of my favorite maps of all time, to be honest. I absolutely love Strike, especially for Search and Destroy. Solo from Advanced Warfare, Rust from Modern Warfare 2, Crash from the original Modern Warfare, and then the S tier goes as follows for Scump. So Nuketown Terminal, this is Summit from Black Ops 1, Raid, of course, no brainer at all, and then we've got High Rise and Firing Range to finish off the job. Would have been interesting if some other maps were in here, like where exactly you'd put standoff and stuff like this, but very much intrigued to your perspective, as always, in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button, tell us the YouTube gods, it's a good video, I just like you should see it as well, and upgrade the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you guys, as always, take care, and I will see you next time.